All right, it's live. Now I need to go to
Live from Cleveland and Los Angeles.
I've never been to Cleveland.
You know what? I hear it's lovely.
All I've seen is was it hot in Cleveland?
That's pretty much perfect encapsulation of it. There's just Betty White's just cruising around. That's the only thing I know about hot in Cleveland. That Betty White's in it. Sorry, I wish I had better hot in Cleveland polls than that, but sadly no. But yeah, it's a cool little burg, I guess. It's a place to live. So
yeah, and the other thing, probably not as positive, is the hastily made tourism video.
Oh yeah, that's great. Like every Clevelander loves that so much. That's the that guy's like a local local famous comedian, Mike Polk. He's real. He's hot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Keith, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear and see me?
Yes. We can do both. Yeah. Hey, Keith.
How's it going, Rich?
It's going pretty good. Thanks so much for doing this. This is really cool.
Not a problem at all.
Just an FYI, we are live to this is the pre-show, but it's streamed live.
Streaming
so
on you,
just
anything,
FYI.
Any secrets? Anything you can't reveal to anyone else?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I guess I'm glad I took down my super secret whiteboard then.
Is there a way to boost your audio from your end, or I can boost it on my end, but it might sound kind of crackly? The chat box. Oh, I need to. Oh, I see.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Let me go grab a headset so I'm not feeding back to you guys. Hold on.
Okay. Cool. Oh, and I'm gonna grab a glass of water really quick. I just realized I am parched. So hold on. Sorry, internet people.
Worries. How do I turn off the chat? Anyone in the chat room know? How do I turn off this chat? Advanced settings is under advanced settings. Oh, there it is. Enable live chat. Saving. Right, Zoe brings bacon. Has it diminished or has it disappeared? Hopefully it has. Oh yeah, it's running right now.
All right. See, this is the Cleveland love right here. There we go. Looks like the logo from Major League. That's why I own it. Take it for what you will. Okay, I can close out of Slack, I think.
That works. Chat is just so cool.
Thank you, chat. I'm not going to log into the chat. My screen is too full. Too many things.
Oh, I'm not a big fan of this iMac camera.
Is that just the built-in guy you're using?
Yeah, did a little reorganizing. My wife had an event, and I usually use my Logitech camera, which is a oldie but goodie.
And Keith, I just wanted to double check with you. Keith Townsend, CTO advisor.
Yep.
Okay.
I prefer the CTO advisor, but
you know what? We can go with the CTO advisor because it's the CTO advisor.
You're not a CTO advisor.
Yeah, I'm not a CTO. I'm the CTO advisor.
Cool. And then, so Keith, basically, what's going to happen is Rich will start off the show. He's going to read 2 news items that you can or don't have to chime in on. Once we get into the top stories, when he does the little music segue thing, feel free to chime in on some of these stories, like if you have a couple of words or sentences you want to add to these. Just basically 6, 7. How many did I put in? 6.
Keith, were you able to access the spreadsheet by chance?
Yeah, I checked out most
Okay.
of the stories, at least unless you've updated them in the past hour or so.
I think we just rearranged them, so you should be okay.
And then we'll have the main discussion topic. That's where you guys go on the impact of the Apple iPhone. And then we go into viewer feedback. One is from Mike, M-I-C is Mick, right? Mike?
I feel more comfortable saying Mike. I mean, personally.
Mike from Down Under. Oh, I should have said Down Under, not Down. Under sends this feedback. Joe Banter says good day all, and then you can read these, Rich, and then Keith. You can feel free to add any thoughts you would like, and then we say thank you to Keith. Thanks to the audience. Plug Patreon, and then plug the fact that tomorrow will be a show.
A nerdtacular show.
Yeah, starts an hour earlier.
Because of the mountain time.
Yeah, because of the mountain time.
This darn mountains interfering with the space-time continuum. It's the worst.
Show will.
Okay.
It's like, anyway.
Keith, I got to get one of those boom arms. You know, I like my radio training has me with like the spring-loaded one, but there's no good way not to put it just right in, especially with the pop guard. I guess that's the problem, is the pop guard, but that seems to work way better.
I went through a couple of I had the spring arm one, and I didn't care much for it. Then a buddy of mine who's like into audio, he's like, you should really try the traditional arm. I'm like, you know what? I've settled on it and I like it. It's not as good for I want to get some lapel mics like what we use in Tech Field Day. Those are cool when they get out of the way. And you know, for the most part, I don't have kids at home, so I don't have to worry about background noise and a lot of the other stuff.
You should look at the we've been trying out the Movos. They have like some lapel mics that are like pretty affordable and pretty good quality. Like they're like, I don't know, 80% of like a Shure $150 was SM93, but they're like $45 a piece, and they sound pretty good.
Yeah, I like this guy really good. This is the who recommended this to me? John Troyer, the 58 beta something another. So
Yeah. That's like a version of like a super popular stage mic. Yeah,
I got a couple of the 58s just for travel because they're a little bit less expensive. But there are a ton. I tried taking them as a mobile podcasting thing, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it's tough to have something you can take on the move, and I mean that's what we deal all the time with Tech Field is like, what can you fit in one bag that you put on the airplane, and can still sound pretty good. So it's always a struggle.
For anyone joining us right now in the chat room or the live stream, reminder that Tom is currently traveling today, so Rich Stroffolino has generously agreed to fill in for his instead. We'll be joined by Keith Townsend. I have a picture of Airbnb for my face. But that said, we'll probably start in a couple of minutes, or we can start now if you feel comfortable with it, Rich.
Let's give it the. I don't want to jump the gun here. We're 2 whole minutes early. I don't want to upset anybody.
Here, HER.
I guess we could go early. Is that okay, chat room? I can't see. Again, I am not going to see anything that you type today, but hope that's
I
okay.
can. So if you
I literally I do not want any feedback. I eschew all advice from the chat room.
oh, there's an SAT word.
It was on my word of the day.
I thought you kind of had a cold or something. Achoo.
That's my name. Achoo.
I'm gonna hide myself. So I guess you start your recording.
Okay.
And then we'll have, and give it like a beat, and then you can just start the read and then start the music. Like the basic, you would, yeah, you basically start with Daily Tech New shows powered by you, blah blah, and then start the music, and then this is today for Thursday. Oh, my daughter's trying to get in the room. All right, I'm gonna hide, and so I'll give whenever you're feeling good.
Sounds good. We'll get started then, Keith, if that's cool with you.
I'm ready whenever you are.
All right. The Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out how you can donate and support the show, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News Show for Thursday, June 29th, 2017. I'm Rich Straffolino, filling in for the traveling man himself, Tom Merritt. Joining me today, we have on the other side of cyberspace, I don't know if it's the exact other side, but what have you, we have Keith Townsend, the CTO advisor himself. Keith, welcome to the show.
Rich, thanks for having me.
This is cool. So let's get started with a few tech things you should know. Bloomberg reports Airbnb is planning a new rental tier for luxury homes, mansions, and penthouses. Tests in limited markets will start at the end of the year. If successful, the service will broaden out to additional locations. So Airbnb trying to go a little swanky, although from my experience, just kind of browsing around for fun and whatnot, there are already some pretty nice listings. So I'll be interested to see like just how swanky and exclusive these get. Could be very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I won't be on either side of that, so.
Not an Airbnb and or penthouse renter fan?
I'm a big fan of Airbnb in general, but I just don't have a penthouse nor a mansion to put on the new and I won't be renting one either. So we'll have to get feedback from someone else.
All right, Representative Catherine Clark of Massachusetts, Representative Susan Brooks of Indiana, and Patrick Meehan of Pennsylvania have proposed the Online Safety Modernization Act of 2017, a bill that would outlaw cyber crimes against individuals, including sextorting sexual imagery from people through blackmail, falsely reporting an emergency to provoke a SWAT team response, and doxing people by disclosing personal information to cause harm. $24 million is included in grants for training and to establish a national resource center of cybercrimes against individuals. This is really, really interesting to me because it's one thing to criminalize the act of doxing somebody, the act of swatting someone. But it's encouraging that this is a bipartisan effort, which gives me some hope that this might actually go somewhere, although evidently there is no version in Congress or in the Senate yet, so that's kind of iffy. But I'm really encouraged that they're putting together, they're thinking of enforcement, and they're actually giving resources to law enforcement.
Yeah, and I thought about this a little bit. I looked at it like this sounds more like one of those in what we call in the U.S. one of those state right issues. But then I thought about how hard this is to enforce in cyberspace, where as you said at the onset, you could be on the other side of cyberspace, and what happens when someone docks you in one state and you live in another. So I think overall this is a good move.
All right, now let's move on to some top stories. Two pieces of big cloud news, Keith. I think that you might find this interesting. Microsoft confirmed the acquisition of Cloudin for reportedly between $50 to $70 million. Cloudin helps enterprises optimize investments in cloud services. Basically, it just gives them a better idea of how effective their money is in a particular cloud instance. Meanwhile, Google and Nutanix announced a strategic partnership around hybrid cloud deployments, allowing for on-site and cloud infrastructure within a unified service and managed kind of in a unified interface. This includes better integrations with containers, which are super hot in the enterprise right now, and the ability to combine Nutanix with Google Cloud's TensorFlow in edge computing environments. Those are a lot of buzzwords. Keith, what's the bigger deal here? Kind of the multi-cloud deal that Microsoft made, or this hybrid cloud partnership that Google made?
You know, I think the partnership with Nutanix and Google is a bigger deal. Nutanix has their next conf going on right now, and VMware has made splash with their VMware on AWS cloud. This is, I think, competitive a little bit towards that for people who are not in that VMware camp. The Microsoft announcement, you know what? There's solutions already on the market that's competitive to it. So it's not like Microsoft is adding a new capability, whereas the Nutanix Google relationship, I think, is a net new capability.
I do think it's interesting, though, that, you know, this to me seems symptomatic of kind of the Satya mania that's taken over Microsoft the last couple of years. Again, kind of giving more tools to maybe, you know, do more comparison between services, not strictly looking to lock you into Azure. Although I'm sure, you know, the benefit of this is that they can maybe hopefully use the analytics that Cloudin has to, you know, better serve customers and you know, better compete. But it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, you know what, and it's interesting that Microsoft itself will be able to get insight into customer workloads that are not in Azure, so they can actually see how much spending, at least at the aggregate level, that customers have in Azure versus Google Compute or even AWS. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see what type of metadata Microsoft is able to collect as a aspect of having this service.
Although this is just, you know, this might be the first time a lot of listeners of this show have heard of Nutanix, but I feel like that's going to crop more and more, maybe not do public consciousness, but for people that follow tech, you know, Nutanix is moving and making some deals, and they're an interesting company to watch in kind of the virtualization space. So definitely remember the name. In AI news, Adobe Analytics Cloud is launching a new voice analytics offering to track how users interact with voice services from Amazon, Google, and Apple. The voice analytics service will integrate Adobe's AI and machine learning service, Sensei. Instagram has announced it will begin using parent company's Facebook language AI, Deep Text, to filter comments that violate Instagram's community guidelines. The service is currently English only, but there are plans to add more languages, which I think will hopefully decrease on like weird, you know, Russian comments on your Facebook stream or your Instagram stream. You know, kind of two very different looks here. Obviously, Adobe clearly looking to increase revenue to make their analytics service just kind of more applicable for modernity, as it were. You know, interesting that brands can get insight into how people are using voice services. I think that's, you know, right now it seems like Google, Amazon, and, you know, coming up now, Apple are really the only ones that are going to be able to take advantage of that. And now with this kind of analytics engine, Adobe's kind of opening it up to brands and to other companies. So it hopefully leads to better voice services, right?
Yeah, and just in general, larger trend, AI, ML, machine learning as a service. These are really complex tools to enable, whether you're an app developer, a consumer products company, just these tech companies starting to repivot themselves and provide these as a service. I'm kind of excited to see what new capability it gives me as a consumer.
Yeah, and the interesting thing for Instagram's part one is, if you read the Wired article that was that we have here in our show notes, it leads into an interesting relationship between how Instagram operates and Facebook operates, even though they're all, you know, obviously they're owned in common. It was Instagram kind of had to go to Facebook for permission to use deep text when they initially rolled this out. It was initially rolled out to purely eliminate spam comments. I think late last year they really started doing this, and now this is moving into strictly objectionable ones. And I'm surprised I'm not hearing a little bit more maybe dissatisfaction with that. I know Instagram doesn't have the same feeling as like Twitter. Like if Twitter did this, even if it made Twitter 1,000 times like better as a service for most human beings, people would be up in arms. There would be free speech issues. But because Instagram, one, is where you go to look at cute pictures of toy fox terriers, hashtag toy fox terrier, hashtag buttons the dog, you can, I think Instagram has a little more leeway to get away with this. Now, if this rolls over into Facebook and all of a sudden, you know, quote unquote objectionable comments start, you know, disappearing from Facebook, then I think we'll see the free speech issue come up.
Well, you know what? Not just free speech, but let's fast forward this. This is a precursor to being focused on the Instagram conversation. What happens when Google, Facebook get better at uh, AI when it comes to image identification, and then you start censoring images based on AI intelligence? So, we've gotten around, we see Facebook has added that fancy new background to memify your text because they couldn't search that text. So they've come up with solutions. At some point, they're going to crack that nut. And I think that's when we start to see a revolt on the Instagram users, when they either start to implant ads or do something that offends that crowd.
Well, what also becomes interesting, if you actually read their community guidelines, there's a lot of unsurprising things. They really, don't like nudity. They don't like, certain culturally sensitive topics. But the one that really interested me was in terms of breaking news, in terms of, quote unquote, extreme content and how that can kind of blend over perhaps into, extremist recruitment or something like that. I think that is where you might see a little bit of a gray area in terms of people commenting on that, especially, if someone takes a photo of, something that would provoke an extreme emotional response, you're going to get extremely emotional comments. Now, maybe the AI is going to be smart enough. It sounded like they designed it to give greater credence to people in your kind of your social graph versus, people you've never met or people that are kind of further away from that. So if they can, that's where the nuance becomes really challenging, I think, for that. But that's what AI is for, right?
Yeah, you think about AI and the promise of AI and context awareness. Earlier today, this whole thing with President Trump tweeting about the TV show, and the response, the host tweeted the picture of Cheerios with small hands. The normal AI wouldn't, or normal filters wouldn't be able to pick up the nuance of that conversation.
Yeah.
So, when you talk about extremist views, these inside type of jokes or inside messages, you would think AI starts to pick on those things. And so to the layperson who didn't know the back and forth of today's conversation, there was no reference to any other person other than the box of Cheerios. And if AI is able to pick up on that in context, and then you get into the issue of false positives, that's really, I think, where it starts to get interesting.
The old slippery slope.
I'm slipping down.
Well, Russia will no longer consider banning the Telegram messaging app after the company's founder, Pavel Durov, agreed to register with the Russian authorities. Telegram initially refused to comply out of privacy concerns. Over social media, Durov said he would not do anything that would violate users' privacy. One thing that I think is interesting here is this is not the first country that Telegram has had to register in. Actually, they had to register in the UK. So I don't think that necessarily, I think a lot of people here are seeing smoke and assuming there's a fire maybe by the fact that, Russia and Telegram are now kind of seem to be okay now. Reading between the lines, it sounds like this might just be a legal battle that's going to come up at some point, because Russian law does state that telecom companies have to carry records of transit and records of messages going over their service. So I think at some point this is just a court battle waiting to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if this was just a way for both parties to save face, show down Russia being able to back away and saying, you know what, super popular service. We don't want to drive the users to a service that will be even more underground. We'll work with these guys and eventually come up with a solution. And then, of course, if you're the messaging app, you want to stay in Russia. Well, I think this is what if not their biggest market, one of their biggest markets. So it's a way to save face.
Absolutely. Well, President Trump nominated Brendan Carr as a commissioner with the FCC. Carr started working for the FCC in 2012 as a attorney advisor recruited by that now chairman Ajit Pai, and was recently named the agency's acting general counsel. Prior to government work, Carr worked as a lawyer for the law firm Wiley Rain, representing AT&T, Verizon, the U.S. Telecom Trade Association, and their lobbying arm, the CTIA. Carr's nomination now goes to the Senate for approval. Now, I know, like, if you are a fan of Ajit Pai, this is a completely expected move. He seems to be, someone who is closely ideologically aligned. If you're not, you're saying this is the end of the world. You're pulling your hair out. But the one thing to keep in mind, and I don't want to make this more than anything, but, St. Tom Wheeler the outgoing or the now former FCC chairman, used to be the head lobbyist or used to do work hand in hand with the CTIA. So, just again, a background with a lobbying firm, I don't think necessarily indicates intent, but we'll see where this goes.
I saw his resume. I'm like, is this Tom Wheeler 2.0? And that would be great if you agree with Tom's positions on net neutrality and so forth. But you know what? Elections have consequences.
Well, and this kind of to steal something from the Make Me Smart podcast, in the normal, not normal dichotomy, this is normal. This is what Ajit Pai is going to do. He's going to appoint a commissioner that he's worked with, that he trusts, that he knows kind of where he's at.
Yeah, I don't see where the surprise is.
Yeah. Elon Musk announced that the Boring Company completed the first segment of a tunnel in LA. That's Los Angeles for you people not in the area, as part of a network running from LAX to Sherman Oaks, California, although the exact length and location was not revealed. The company had previously successfully drilled test tunnels in the SpaceX parking lot. I'm assuming SpaceX has a rather large parking lot. I mean, they build rockets, so they have to park them somewhere. But to go from that, I know they were having some municipal issues with the city of Los Angeles in terms of making sure they had the right permits and making sure they were safe to drill in certain places. I think it's very telling that we don't know exactly where this is at. But Keith, are you looking forward to taking a super high-speed private tunnel beneath LA?
I can't get past that scene in the Ocean's 13 with this is the drill that drilled the other side and but yeah, something about being hurled at that speed in a tunnel just doesn't appeal to me for some reason. I don't know what about it just doesn't.
Maybe it's the darkness or inescapable doom, Keith. It could be either one. I appreciate, again, the craziness of Elon Musk seemingly being bored and coming up with new transportation technologies. But I will wait until this is more than an unnamed segment somewhere between LAX and Sherman Oaks.
There you go.
AMC soft launch AMC Premiere today. The $4.99 a month premium service lets pay TV subscribers watch AMC shows ad-free as soon as they air on TV. The service also features exclusives, first look content, and curated movies. The service is currently exclusive to Comcast cable subscribers, but AMC plans on expanding it to other pay TV providers as well. This is described as a HBO Go-like service. At first, I was kind of reading it like AMC with a streaming service. But this is like the most anti-cord cutting thing. This is just, I'm annoyed by ads, and it's worth my time to pay for them to go away, at least until I see what the exclusives are. If there's like a weird third or fourth Walking Dead spinoff series, then maybe that's worth it to somebody. But to me, I don't know. This
pretty niche. Can I give Comcast $5 a month to not show me any ads? Then we're talking, but $5
it took
a month.
How many years to figure out that people would pay extra for that? So I'm assuming Comcast will take at least another 2 decades to figure that out. All right, and finally, kind of in our top stories, Tinder announced a new paid tier for their service called Tinder Gold, which will give access to a like you grid of profiles who have already liked your profile. Tinder Gold users will also get access to all the features of Tinder Plus, which, among other things, allows you to rewind accidental swipes. No set pricing was announced, but the service will initially roll out in beta in Argentina, Australia, Canada, and Mexico. I really enjoy that Tinder is now going from strictly a narcissistic service to also a solipsistic service at the same time. Keith, I'll be real here. I married my high school sweetheart, so I have no experience with Tinder. Does Tinder Gold sound appealing to you?
I've been married for just under 20 years. So just in case my wife watches this, that Gizmodo article was the first time I've ever even seen the Tinder interface. So, no, it doesn't appeal to me at all.
You just thought it was something
it kind of just goes right over my head.
Yeah. All right, and those are your top stories. All right, so today we have kind of a big thing that's been spurring up in the spurring up. That's not a word. Coming up in the news. Pretty much the last 2 weeks, I've been seeing kind of thought pieces on this. It's the 10-year anniversary of the iPhone. So let's take a listen to a little something from 10 years ago.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years.
All the clapping.
An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone.
Interesting.
Are you getting it?
Internet communicator.
Wait, hold it.
These are not 3 separate devices.
What?
This is one device.
Now, how much would you pay?
And we are calling it iPhone.
So there we have the jubilant applause of people at the Apple keynote. But yeah, that was from the original iPhone announcement in January, I believe, of the year. But July 29th, 2007 was when it came out. And you can be a Apple hater. You can be the biggest Apple fanboy. But I think it's kind of impossible to say it's had no, I mean, it certainly has had a substantial impact, across a variety of sectors. The one thing I really loved about that clip, though, watching the keynote in and of itself, it's a little long, but it's interesting to see what the initial kind of what was envisioned with the original iPhone. Like you heard there, a phone, an iPod, and an internet communicator sounds almost laughably quaint. Now, like 10 years in, that's not how we think about the iPhone in any way, right, Keith?
Not in essence. I'm flashing back to that time as I was preparing and reading and thinking back to this. I tried to sell my wife on the ideal of her being the first experiment in our house to get an iPhone, and she didn't get the appeal of it at all. She had an iPad, HP iPad. You know what? Matter of fact, she would never let me sell it. It's in my junk drawer now. And she was like, yeah, I was up to like 5 years ago. She's like, yeah, I still want to hang on to it because I don't know if this iPhone thing
don't know if the smartphone thing's taking off.
I don't know if this is actually going to kick off. But no, it's not what we thought it would be at all, I don't think.
Yeah, it originally launched an AT&T exclusive, and it's kind of hard to think back that long ago that AT&T itself was kind of new as a recombined entity coming from the parts of Singular and one of the baby bells that kind of merged together to form AT&T, the big blue once again. But an exclusive phone on there, again, kind of weird to think about now, and cost $499 for a 4 GB model at launch. There was a collective sigh of relief when the latest iPhone no longer came in 16 GB. So kind of weird to again see the iPhone kind of with again it shows, I think, with a device that didn't come with a high resolution camera at all, didn't come with a front facing camera, didn't come with an app store. 4 GB of internal storage doesn't seem, that lines up with that initial vision of it just as a internet communicator, phone, iPod.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, the original price, remember, there was a big price cut. I think it was like $5.99 when it first came out. There was a big price cut, and Apple ended up giving everyone who bought it $100 iTunes gift card, and
what everyone loves, iTunes gift.
And you had to actually jailbreak your phone to get any apps on it. It was you look at it back now, what, the original iPhone was a crazy device.
Well, and kind of in that weird Apple tradition of launching a new product that ends up being, kind of a defining product for maybe a category that is kind of held together by like gum and, is kind of MacGyvered together to work at the last minute and then slowly builds into like an established platform.
So as I'm looking at my Surface Book, looking at the notes on my Surface Book, talking on my iMac, and looking at my Dell external display, I'm going to make a statement that may sound hyperbolic, but the iPhone changed the world. Plain and simple. The iPhone and its derivatives changed the world.
Well, if you look at some of the effects, I mean, one, the idea that I think everyday people would even care about apps. You know, or the fact that apps is like a thing, right? Instead of a CD-ROM that you put in and you get the, you know, your Microsoft Word application or a game or something that, like, I never thought like my mom would be like trying to, you know, telling me about a cool new app that she tried, other than maybe at like an Applebee's or something like that. But looking at going kind of bigger than that, one of the things I think people don't realize is just at the end of 2016, Apple sold over 1 billion handsets collectively. They started out with a little over I think it was 1.6 million in the first year. And since then, even though overall sales have kind of declined from 2015 to 2016, over 1 billion handsets is insane. It's crazy. Apple in 2007 was an iPod company. They made 40% of their revenue on iPods. Now, 69% of Apple revenue comes from the iPhone alone, not including any other iOS devices, and it accounts for $54 billion in revenue as of Q1 2017. Just kind of a crazy impact going from, you know, I always thought it was funny. A couple of years ago, I read the book Microsurfs, and one of the big storylines there is that someone in Apple, or someone is a friend of someone who works at Apple, and they have the worst job ever. Everyone hates the job. Everyone's waiting for Apple to get bought or sold, and that Apple is like just on a death march. And it's so weird to read that now in the context that they're literally one of the biggest companies, if not the biggest company on any given stock day in the, you know, in the world.
Well, if you look back at that moment, so, you know, my wife is kind of the prototypical use case. She had an iPad, which is the concept of her installing side-loading apps onto her iPad is just, you know, I showed her how you can buy an app, and she was like, yeah, I'd never do that. The iPad had basic functionality that she wanted. We were a big digital camera house, and we were heavily invested in Microsoft's media center and its vision for MP3 players. Within a year and a half of her adopting the iPhone, all of those devices, with the exception, we always kept a dedicated digital camera. We just, you know, because, you know, the iPhone wasn't that great of a camera, but that really changed how we consumed electronics in our household.
Well, Keith, I'm kind of interested in your perspective as the CTO advisor. How did the iPhone and kind of the emergence of literally mobile computers that everyone was like, the idea that it was common and expected for everyone to have a mobile computer kind of affect, you know, on a larger business level, on an enterprise level, you know, just in terms of work expectations and, you know, kind of on an infrastructure level, I think we're still dealing with that.
You know what? It is still changing. You know, think about it. SAP has been pushing this Fiori concept of being able to, you want to approve a PO anywhere in the world. What? Approve a PO? That's something that I'll do when I get in the office, but it has increased the speed of business. You know, my mom runs a lifestyle business that she would not be able to run if not for her iPhone and her iPad. That's literally those two pieces of technology literally powers her business. And you scale that to an entire workforce, it's going to have repercussions. I remember 10 years ago, almost, you know, about 9 years ago, when my first business user came to me and said, "Hey, I want to use this to do business." And I kind of scratched my head and said, wow, I never expected that.
Well, and in an age when, you know, every major carrier was selling Blackberries and Blackjacks without cameras on them, like you had a special non-camera tier, because the idea of a connected device that you would carry around with you in an enterprise or a business or whatnot that had a camera that you could send photos over the internet was crazy. No one wanted, you know, that was unthinkable. And then all of a sudden, you know, the iPhone blows up, and I mean, the idea of that becomes laughable almost overnight.
Yeah, it's I'm still in awe at some of the things that we do. You know, we always had these space age concepts of of video conferencing and what it would look like. There's no reason why, and I'm sure you guys do it all the time. You host people sitting on LTE on their iOS or Android device to join into this live conversation that's being streamed worldwide, and millions upon millions of people can choose to view it simultaneously, powered by these mobile devices in our pocket. That's quite mind-blowing.
Yeah, if you look just kind of down the line from, carriers that had to bulk up their 3G coverage, from, businesses that had to rethink just simple things like how to design a web page to fit on a 3.5-inch screen, to consumers, rethinking the services that they could expect to have on them at any given time, whether it's payments, transportation, or that kind of stuff. You just didn't. I mean, I'm sure there are examples of, I'm sure someone had the idea for, a mobile payment system, or, a tap to pay mobile payment system on a phone before the iPhone or something like that, because technology is old and people are really creative and they think about all that stuff. But it took a platform like that had a super strong developer base follow along with it a year later, once they opened up the App Store, to really to change it. So again, I don't want to be to be an Apple love fest, because I actually think it's really funny looking at the original iPhone, what it didn't have at the same time. The simple things like copy paste, which I think is a little overrated, but there was the idea of a selfie cam wasn't there. The idea of what did I have here? There was no, MMS, like basic functionality on a 2G connection. There was no video. I mean, what we think of as a modern iPhone, the idea of it being simply a phone, internet communicator, iPod, shows that Apple definitely didn't have it all figured out. They just knew they had a lot of cool design ideas. They had a lot of cool implementations. Certainly, that took a lot of R&D, and as Steve Jobs says, they patented the hell out of it to dubious effect. It was an interesting platform, but clearly even Apple didn't have it all figured out at the start.
Yeah, if I used to maintain a list of features that my wife needed in the iPhone before she would be willing to lay her iPad to rest. So you think about basic functionality. If you were to buy an iPhone as a contact manager's, just a competitive device, you would think, oh, why in the world would I have a iPad or a Palm Pilot? The iPhone lacked basic capability that a Palm Pilot had during that day. So Apple most definitely didn't have it together. My wife complained for years about the lack of a stylus on the iPhone. So I think it would be, at one point, I'm by far not an Apple fanboy, but we have to tip our cap to the change of idea that Apple provided, what a smartphone was back before the iPhone. I had my dream device at the time was a candy bar phone running Windows, I think CE at the time, and I could sync my contacts up to it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I could directly the Outlook. That was like the height of the technology. Yeah. And then, the fact that I could get web pages on it. Whoa, wow. Ooh. This is incredible. Internet communicator.
Simpler times. Well, we have some messages of the day. Keith, thank you for that. That was a fantastic conversation. And if you want to send in your thoughts to kind of the impact of the iPhone and at year 10 years in, feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. But we got some messages. Like I said, we have Mick, I'm not sure, from Down Under, sending us their feedback from yesterday's post-show banter. He writes, "Good day, y'all," which I assume is some sort of slang from the continent down there. "I know of the late Huell Hauser down here in cold and gray Melbourne, Australia, thus blowing Roger's native Californian theory completely out of the water. Completely. I suspect I'm a bit of an outlier regarding this smiley face." To this, producer Roger would like to respond for those of them scratching their heads. Huell Hauser was a transplant from Tennessee who hosted an LA-based PBS show called California's Gold. The show featured Huell visiting famous and not-so-famous California landmarks. Among the numerous spin-offs shows that Huell did, the only one that wasn't California-centric was a series called Australia with Huell Hauser. You can find more info at Chapman University's Huell Hauser Archives. And I think we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Thank you, Mick, and producer Roger. All right, Tony wanted to respond to Tuesday's episode, which focused on the EU's decision to fine Google for abusing its market dominance. I'm a day behind, so I just listened to Tuesday's episode with Patrick about the Google EU case involving comparison shopping. I'm not sure what anyone could reasonably expect Google to do other than run a search company and not offer anything else. If they are trying to provide the best possible results to an end user, and those results happen to be Google prioritized, and they didn't game the search algorithm or artificially prioritize them, they are being as impartial as possible. I agree that there are other areas where a case could be made that this doesn't seem to be one. I'm asking them to be slightly poor. If asking them to be a slightly poor search engine, okay. Basically, thanks, Tony. I really appreciate it. Just his 2 cents, by the way. Basically, his argument is saying Google is doing this to be the best possible search engine, not necessarily to goose their own service, their comparison shopping service in the EU's case. You know, I see Tom's perspective that he articulated on the show, Keith. He was saying basically that, you know, he kind of understands where the EU is coming from, but comparison shopping doesn't seem like it's that much of a market. And so by having the search results, he thought there were more egregious examples of Google potentially having problematic offerings given their dominance in the EU. Did you see that, and any thoughts on that?
I didn't see it, but I do have thoughts on it. $2.7 billion is a lot of money. It's a lot of money in EU, Canadian, and US dollars. So that any way you stretch it. You know, I thought about it and I said, well, what's the real recourse? You know, and the American in me want to say, EU, man up and or woman up and grow some internet businesses that will compete with Google. And there shouldn't be a problem. But from a realistic perspective, Google has the market share. Google is a monopoly, more so in Europe than they are in the US. And those regulators, if Google doesn't like the rules in those markets, they can do what they did in China and pull out. Those are the rules in that market, and they need to abide by the rules in that market.
I do think it's interesting that with the idea that it's kind of the situation Microsoft was in, where they were very hesitant to enter new markets, knowing that they had this dominance, and anything that linked back to their you know, market dominating product then is going to cause regulators to come in and kind of put their foot down. So I'm a little sympathetic to the idea that, you know, Google is trying to make a product, you know, ostensibly to organize the world's information. You know, I'm sympathetic to that, but at the same time, I do agree with you. Yeah, like those are the rules. They should know that. You know, and they definitely have the legal personnel to sort that out. Finally, Sonia Vining wanted to add her 2 cents to the post-show discussion on DTNS last Friday. Wow, I thought that once school was out, I'd be able to join the chat room, catch up on DTNS Slack, and so much else. Instead, I'm a week behind on episodes, but I couldn't pass up an email on the pre-show conversation from Friday, June 23rd. Most embarrassing concert? She wins. She saw Barry Manilow's Paradise Cafe tour in 1985. Sonia, I regret to inform you that was the year I was born. On purpose. It was intentional. At least I somewhat recovered by seeing Don Henley a few years later. Sonia, I'm going to say that's arguable. Ree Hamilton, she saw it last October in Chicago. It's playing, I think it's still playing out there. Unlike my concert list, I've seen a lot of really excellent theater. It's kind of her bailiwick. And I can say without reservation, Hamilton is at the top of my list. I second this. I truly believe it's a watershed moment in American musical theater, making as much of an impact as Showboat, Oklahoma, and Jesus Christ Superstar in their times. Enjoy. A message from Miss Music Teacher, Sonia. Keith, have you listened to Hamilton at all?
I have not listened to Hamilton, and I live in Chicago, so I should be shamed that I haven't spent the $1,000 to go and see the play. But you know what? I can buy a really cool Intel Nook for $1,000. Well,
it's true. It's true, and that will you know, last you
a lot longer than the play. I'll buy the
you can leave that in the room where it happened. Hi-oh, Hamilton joke. All right, thanks, Keith. I really appreciate everything being on the show. This was a really cool conversation, and it's pretty awesome to have you on. We'll have to have you on DTNS, maybe even when I'm not hosting.
It will be fun.
All right. Well, thanks to the patrons out there. Remember, if you want to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/DTNS. Could not do the show without you. We, of course, kind of some of the emails alluded to it. There is a pre and post show. Sometimes it's about the news, sometimes it's about food, sometimes it's about Hamilton, as we just discussed. And patrons can get an exclusive RSS feed where they can add their favorite, they can add to their favorite podcasting app and get this exclusive pre-show, plus the regular show and post-show. Just support us anytime at patreon.com/DTNS. Send in feedback at let's try that again. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We are live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern and some other time, California time, at alphageekradio.com, diamondclub.tv, and facebook.com/Daily Tech News Show. Remember, tomorrow, Tom is going to be doing an hour early. He's broadcasting from Nerdtacular in Utah. So just mark your calendars. Keep that in mind. All right, there we go. There's the music. Until next time we meet, dear audience, I need you all to remember to have a super sparkly day.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
And we are clear. The recording is done.
You guys are pros. That was a great job, Rich.
Yeah, it was cool. That was a lot of fun.
It was fun. I think that was my first non-political and non-enterprise tech podcast, so that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to turn the Nutanix story into trying to make hyperconverged infrastructure relevant to the listeners of Daily Tech News Show. But
yeah, that might not have. I thought about explaining it. I'm like, nah, no.
You can barely explain it to CTOs, right, Keith?
Exactly. People
Although
like, what
I feel like there's an interesting episode about SD-WAN that we can make happen sometime in the future.
You know what? Just call it dual internet, using dual internet connections.
Bundled connections.
Bundled internet connections, and people will eat it up.
You know, Keith, I didn't, if anyone's still on the live stream, I've totally forgot to ask, if people want to follow you, check out what you're all about, where should they go? I totally forgot about that. I'm sorry.
That is at CTO Advisor, but that's why we branded the CTO Advisor. So if you Google the CTO Advisor, you will find me.
That is true.
Hopefully.
And I totally botched it because I didn't plug my day job at gestaltit.com.
Oh, hopefully, hopefully your boss doesn't.
Yeah,
Steven doesn't listen to the podcast.
Appreciate that. But I blog for an enterprise IT site, so that's cool too. And I do a podcast actually, the on-premise IT Roundtable. So if you want to learn about caching versus tiering, and we have one episode coming up on NVMe storage, which would be pretty cool. So check that out if you're super geeky into enterprise stuff.
Yeah, just by the name alone, it's super controversial.
See, Roger, that's the problem. I know. Yeah, it's an inside joke. Roger, that's why I'm just a teleprompter monkey, because I didn't plug my stuff on there, and I totally forgot to do that.
I need to get Roger to come over and have him tune my. I just bought a new TV, OLED, and I need to get him to come over and tune my OLED.
Okay.
Roger's a big. I don't know if you know, Roger's kind of famous in the whole AV space.
Really? I was not.
Yeah, he's a big deal.
He just dropped off, so maybe he was insulted by you calling him out on his AV cred.
No, you. So you were born in '85. So Roger, I used to follow Roger a lot when him and Patrick Gordon used to do a show together. I used to listen to that an awful lot. So when I saw that, I'm like, Roger produces the show. I'm like, Roger should be doing this show.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can. Roger, we're talking about you exclusively.
Yeah. And I had to reboot my tab because, like all things Chrome, it's all very finicky.
Keith was professing himself.
I just wanted to let you know after the show, as Rich alluded to earlier, we have a post show, and you're welcome to join in. Basically, as you guys banter about, we go to showbot.tv to vote on the title of today's episode. And so let me see what came up, since I had to close it to get Again, sorry for Patreons who are listening to the exclusive audio about the 30-second missing audio. That's me. All right. 10 years ago, we got ellipses, one more thing, which is allusion to not Patrick, to Steve Jobs announcing the phone. This Airbnb Lux just ain't for us. I think that's a Lord, right? Isn't that a Lord reference?
That involves popular music, therefore it is dead to me.
All right. It would be a shame if something happened to your content. Musk is so boring these days. I think we did something like that. Musk boring. Musk is boring. Microsoft's cloudy and 9.
That one is Silverblade. That one is painful.
AI came. AI saw. AI sent.
I kind of have we done one like that? Because I kind of like that, even though it's not. I mean, that we only touched on that one. I kind of like that one.
Although I feel 10 years ago we got one more thing is kind of classic.
Yeah, I mean, it ties into the main topic. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
It is. It's funny. You kids. I say that in the future will be basically flipping through their history app in class, and they'll have this section on how the iPhone changed the world
on their AR brain implants neural interface, right?
And then they'll still be wondering why Siri sucks so at the same time.
Oh, Keith, you speak words of wisdom. I like that, or I actually like the an iPad, a phone, and an internet communicator. I kind of like that one for touching on the theme.
That is kind of cool too. I like that too.
Well, we still got a few more seconds.
Oh, Roger, real quick. I didn't realize I recorded the show as a wave. I'm assuming you would like that as an MP3 instead.
No, if you want to, you can send it to me as a wave over Slack. I can level 8 and MP3 it. As long as it's just the show.
Yeah, it's just the show, but it's like a 200 meg file. Here, I'll throw it in Dropbox and just send you the link.
Okay, cool.
A show without merit. That's pretty good.
That's the troll one. That's the what's the other classic one, Roger?
Show without merit. I don't know.
Who watches the Watchmen is the classic.
Yes,
like who iPhones the iPhone or something would be the
who watches the iPhone? Who watches the Netflix?
Yeah.
I watch the Netflix. EU grow up, don't like Google, use Bing. 10 years ago, an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator.
It's not as concise. It's the brevity is the soul of wit.
10 years ago, we got one more thing. I mean,
I think we can go with that.
We'll go with that.
I give approval. I give approval to this.
All right, it's the top. People voted. It's going in. It's going in. It's going in. All right.
Oh my God. Stupid WAV files. It's going to take a minute because my internet's slow, Roger. I apologize.
That's okay. I think it's a common theme with everyone's internet who works on the show, except for Tom.
I'm just glad to.
Bandwidth.
I know they just had AT&T fiber in our area, and I'm trying to get the spousal approval factor to get the gigabit down, which would be kind of nice.
I want symmetrical internet, but it's not